Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh in the Relief Factor Studio West. I am joined in this day of breaking news by Noah C. Rothman, senior editor at National Review. Noah is also, of course, the participant frequently in the commentary podcast, as well as occasionally on the I've got this reversed, the National Review podcast, and occasionally on the podcast for commentary. Noah, welcome. Big breaking news day. Let's start with Minneapolis. President Trump has just posted a Truth Social post. I want to read it to you. I've just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was, obviously, a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left, capital R, capital L, is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe, all in caps. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from the radical left movement of violence and hate. Now, Noah, before we get to your reaction, tell people what the new title of your forthcoming book is.
It's called Blood and Progress, A Century of Left-Wing Violence in America. It's coming out on May 19th. I hope you'll consider pre-ordering it.
I hope everyone will. And Dwayne and I were talking with you off air. You may have to add another chapter if what happens in Minneapolis tonight happens in Minneapolis. And I think Jacob Frey's comments are going to lead to a riot. Your assessment of this entire situation.
Yeah, first, the inciting incident. I've watched about 3 or 4 videos of it, and I've seen enough to get a general shape of the event, but not nearly enough to render a verdict on it. And I'm shocked at the extent to which so many in the commentary class and political professionals and elected officials are rendering judgments on this event as practically as it's happening in real time to a degree that seems designed to inflame public opinion. The precise opposite of what responsible communicators and responsible political actors should be doing in these moments. I've seen Jacob Frey's reactions. I've seen Governor Walz reactions, who's preemptively activating the National Guard in anticipation.
Wait, I don't know about this. What's Walz doing? That's news to me.
Preemptively activating the National Guard, or issuing a warning, a warning order to the Minnesota National Guard in anticipation of civil unrest. And it seems very much like the civil unrest is the sort of thing that they anticipate, if not invite. It's almost a hard thing for me to say. But the extent to which they're agitating makes it hard for me to think anything else.
Yeah, let me have the audience listen to Mayor Jacob Frey, cut number 2.
I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get out of Minneapolis.
We bleeped out the
F-bomb,
Noah, for the benefit of you. We are an FCC-regulated broadcast station on television and radio, so we can't use the F-bomb even when the mayor of Minnesota does so, of Minneapolis. Here's his second comment, cut number 3. The audio's off, Harley.
Of this, to get justice and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it.
So I want to freeze hold the screen on there. Can you put the clip back up there, Harley, and freeze it? Noah, there's a police officer to his left. There's a police officer to his right. There's an interpreter. Then there are these 2 guys standing there. Who are they? What are they doing there?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, stakeholders in Minneapolis at this point, and certainly stakeholders in the career of Mayor Frey and Governor Walz, given the corruption scandals swirling around them. That's such a profoundly irresponsible statement. We don't have the body cam footage. We don't know if a jury presented with all the facts will determine that the woman who engaged the vehicle prior to these shots being fired will determine that the driver was going at the police or away from the police. All that matters in a courtroom. But we're adjudicating this now in the court of public opinion, which is a terrible place for these facts to be assessed. And I think that's in part because they want that to be the case. These political officials in Minnesota, want us to be chewing over a narrative, not facts, a narrative in order to inflame. And the passions are alive on social media right now. And it's a sort of passions we should be very afraid of. Over the course of the last year, there were multiple attacks on ICE officers, on CBP officers, deadly attacks designed to murder them, including a small cell terrorist action in Texas involving 10 individuals who used sophisticated strategies in order to lure out their targets and attack them from multiple fire positions, multiple angles. It was a terrorist assault, one of several. And the increasing attacks on American law enforcement are, just to bring it back a little bit back to my book, are indicative of waves of terroristic violence of the sort, left-wing terroristic violence of the sort we've seen throughout the 20th century, in the 1910s and the 1920s, 1960s, 1970s, early 1980s. And now these waves, they come in cascades, and they crest in ways that are particularly bloody. We haven't even begun to see what that bloodshed will look like if we have a wave of violence akin to the one that overtook the 1960s and 70s and the 1910s and 1920s. And that's what I try to warn about. But these warnings are going unheeded. There is so much temptation out there in the zeitgeist for something like an existential violent conflict with their political opponents. I don't even know if it can be stopped at this point.
No, I got to go back in time to 1992. It was my second month on television as one of the co-anchors of the local PBS affiliate Nightly News and Public Affairs show Life and Times. And I've been on the air 2 months when LA went up in flames in the 1992 riots. Many, many people were killed. Many people were injured. It followed the acquittal of the police officers charged in the first trial following from the Rodney King beating. And I believe Daryl Gates said something that was, if not inflammatory, it was almost a stand-down order. Then we had the truck driver, Reginald Denny, beaten at the corner of Florence and Normandy, and nothing happened. It was like beaming an alert signal to every bad guy in the city, who then went out and rioted. I would not be surprised if Minneapolis is the scene of violence tonight. Would you be?
Well, you had said something at the end of the last hour, which is a hopeful mitigating circumstance, is that it's cold.
Yep.
If it was the summertime, it would be almost a certainty that we would at least see agitated demonstrations and isolated incidents of riotous violence. You can't rule it out, though, because a lot of the violence, mob violence that we saw in 2020, 2021 was not organic, was not spontaneous. It was coordinated and planned. You don't take my word for it. Take the word of New York City's police officials who identified out-of-state actors who were working in concert with other actors across the country in order to foment that kind of riotous violence. This sort of thing is organized, and to the extent that it's organized, it can materialize even in the absence of the kind of organic circumstances in which people just languidly mill about until there's some sort of an incident which snaps the reptilian part of your brain into action and you just join in with the mob. That's not what we would be talking about. We would be talking about organized insurrectionary activity, and we cannot rule that out.
Let me move from this to Operation Absolute Resolve. Do you believe the demonstrators urging the release of Maduro in Brooklyn or New York, wherever he was held, Manhattan or Brooklyn, that was organically organized? That the pro-Maduro, the Chavistas in New York just showed up on behalf of Nicolas Maduro?
Maybe some, because it was really only a handful. It wasn't, a mass demonstration. But I would imagine there's a listserv somewhere that appeals to the fellow travelers out there. I don't think any of them were paid to show up, for example. There really are a bunch of people who are just mindless, progressive buffoons who really believe in the utopia that Hugo Chavez established in Caracas. They're just, you can't say that, it's Hanlon's razor. You can't attribute necessarily to malice that which is more easily explained by stupidity. So I'm willing to lean into stupidity there. But certainly there are organized organizations that foment that kind of hostility and say, this is where we're going to meet and you guys should all show up. But I don't know if there's an organized effort there, akin to what we were talking about when it comes to the violence of 2020 and the riots and the degree to which those were organized and coordinated.
Now, can I keep you for another segment, Noah? Have you got
Sure.
time? Okay. I
Sure.
want to comment to you on what the web has done, and I'm going to use a very unusual way of leading into this. Last year or the year before that, a revival of sorts began at Asbury College in Kentucky. And because of the web, it became a national incident. And people attracted to, in quotes, revivals flooded the town and the college, and they were overwhelmed. I do believe the internet allows people to turn their car around and head for Minneapolis right now. And after the break, I'm going to talk with Noah if he thinks that might happen tonight in Minneapolis. I'll go check the weather during the break as well. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by our friend Noah Rothman of National Review. Noah is the author of the forthcoming book, Blood and... What do we call it, Noah? Blood and what?
Blood and Progress. A century of left-wing violence in America.
You are gonna need another chapter, Noah. It is 41 degrees in Minneapolis right now. It's not going to get that cold tonight. It's going to get down to 30 degrees. And tomorrow about 2 p.m. Minnesota time, it's going to rain or snow a little bit. But it's for Minnesota, that's balmy.
That's balmy.
There are crowds already chasing cops out. We have some video of that. So let me play the Tim Walz clip that we just got so that the audience can hear what you, Noah Rothman, have already heard. Cut number 13.
I don't know. I hope. Maybe we're at the McCarthy moment. Do you have no decency? Do you have no decency? We have someone dead in their car for no reason whatsoever. And I don't want to be right about this, but I said if they do this, they're going to create a chaotic situation where someone innocent's going to get killed. And they did it.
So
and now
for no reason. What do you make of that commentary? For no reason.
I mean, a couple of things. First, and it's a relatively cheap shot, but the quote is not, "Do you have no decency?" The Joe Welsh quote, which is famous, is, "Have you no decency, sir?" That has the advantage of being grammatically correct. And I can't understand why he said it twice. Actually, I can. It's because he has absolutely no concern for how he comes off. The man is a buffoon. He's a boob. He cannot meet the measure of any moment, much less this one.
No need to indulge in compliments, Noah. You don't have to build him up.
His inclination here is so reckless, so grotesque. It is to indict the federal government and law enforcement officers having absolutely no basis to render that judgment. He does not have the evidentiary threshold to render that judgment. So rather than be responsible and hold back and allow cooler heads to prevail, he's instigating. He's telling them that this person was killed, was murdered, perhaps, by federal law enforcement agencies.
Let me add cut number 15, which is where you say X, hoping not X happens. Cut number 15.
Minnesotans don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe.
What do you think of that, Noah?
I'm glad he said do so in a peaceful manner, but that is the sort of thing you say to indemnify yourself after you've expressed 14 other sentences, which are instigatory, which are the sort of thing that would inspire people to get out in the streets under the impression that they are acting righteously and judiciously because the federal government is lawless and is indeed engaged in a violent attack on citizens of Minnesota. He had said previously, "We have never been at war with the federal government." He said that word. He said those words. As though we are now. What's the implication there? Why would you even say such a thing? Unless you were saying that in order to identify, delineate the time, the before and after. Before, it was peaceful. Now, it is a state of conflict. This is all very reckless.
Now, I want to go back 5 years
with fire
in a day.
That they don't understand it.
I want to go back 5 years in a day to Donald Trump addressing a crowd near the Lincoln Memorial on the Ellipse when he said, "Now go march to the Capitol peacefully and demonstrate." And Jack Smith said that was enough to charge him with the intent to riot, and he thought hold him responsible for the Capitol riot of January 6th. Is there a difference in kind here? Because I think actually Walz is inciting, and I don't think President Trump was because of the distance that had to be covered under the Brandenburg test in the Supreme Court lore. But I don't think Walz will be guilty of anything either if people riot tonight. Do you?
No, because the Brandenburg test is not the right thing to apply here. We're not talking about criminal charges. We're not talking about the charge of incitement to violence, which is notoriously difficult to prove. This is not a legal issue. This is about being a responsible political actor. And responsible political actors say, yeah, this is an assault on your rights. We're at war with the federal government. They're coming to murder you. They want to invade this state. They want to occupy this state. They want to take away your rights, but be peaceful. That doesn't invalidate the last 14 sentences you said. And I would say the same thing about Donald Trump. Indeed, I have in a 2,500-word piece published today about the January 6th revisionism that was published to the White House's website, which I found absolutely obnoxious. So I've got credibility on both ends of the spectrum here.
Well, I've had one rule. I've always had one rule, which is Jack Smith was out of control because you might condemn whatever happened on the mall. And certainly I condemn what happened at the Capitol. But that wasn't criminal, what Donald Trump said, and Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman. It wasn't Brandenburg incitement, and neither Jacob Frey nor Tim Walz are engaged in Brandenburg incitement, because you must have the present ability and intent to cause violence when you urge people to cause violence, and they don't have that. But they are remarkably indifferent to the history of Minneapolis, right? This is
Blasé to a degree that is really irresponsible, and I don't think you can divorce the scandal that is engulfing Minneapolis from this.
I don't think so either. Well, I was getting there. Go ahead, expand. Because the guys in the picture, I don't know that they are Somali Americans. I don't know that they're not. I suspect that they are, but I don't know. Do you think
I don't know either,
are?
But that's a really reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
Based on the extent to which this diaspora has an outsized influence, given the size of the population, outsized influence over the politics of Minneapolis in particular, and Minnesota too. And we've seen the degree to which they can bilk the state out of untold billions of dollars with very little oversight. Indeed, we have records that indicate that in at least the case of the Minneapolis Education Department, they were scared to death of this community merely because they could be accused by it of being racist for looking too hard at their graft and corruption. And they won that argument with an ultimatum alone. So yes, it's important for us to say that because of your own admissions, we can assess that you do not have the wherewithal to confront this community, to police this community. And because it has become such a scandal in Minnesota, it's blowing up in Minnesota. It's not so much a national scandal anymore, but Minnesota has been consumed with this for months, at least since the piece in the New York Times that came out just before Thanksgiving. And that's the sort of thing that you might want to get off the front pages, especially since Tim Walz's career.
Last question. If you were a fraudster in Minneapolis, if you actually know that you're guilty, but you haven't been convicted yet or charged, would you want a riot tonight?
That's a good question. Why, in your estimation?
Just to turn the page, change the subject, get away, absorb federal resources.
It would. I don't think it would save you from being indicted or prosecuted. So the individual who makes that calculation is probably miscalculating. But from a political perspective, for individuals who have presided over this scandal, who aren't going to face criminal charges for it, but are facing consequences in their arena of public opinion for it, yeah, you absolutely would want to turn the page on this. And even domestic violence, as awful as that was, it really didn't turn out so terribly for Tim Walz and Jacob Frey. They survived it. So that's their experience. That's how they approach this scenario. Why wouldn't they think they'll survive this?
Oh, that's an excellent point, Noah. Muscle memory is be on the side of the rioters. I was reelected. That's muscle memory. There are no riots right now. There are some crowds that have gathered in Minneapolis. They've chased some police away in various neighborhoods, but there are no riots, no violence yet, other than the killing of the 37-year-old driver who appears to have backed up and then accelerated into an ICE agent. Noah C. Rothman on X. Thank you, Noah. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.